Marcus Rivera pressed his frozen fingers against the old woman's neck, searching for a pulse he was certain wouldn't be there. Wire had cut so deep into her wrists that blood had frozen black against her skin. Her lips were purple in the moonlight. He was 19 years old, shaking from cold and terror, and he knew if he stayed out here trying to save her, the desert night would kill them both. But his hands were already pulling off his hoodie, already wrapping it around her shoulders, already making the choice that would bring 198 of America's most feared bikers to his college campus 3 days later. Every single one of them bowing their heads to a kid they'd never met. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button and follow this story all the way to the end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story reaches. Now, let's get into what happened that night in the Arizona desert. The cafeteria went completely silent when Brett Hawkins grabbed Marcus's lunch tray and flipped it upward like he was tossing a frisbee. Spaghetti sauce splattered across Marcus's face and chest. The tray clattered to the floor. 300 students stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped everything to watch. Marcus stood there with red sauce dripping off his chin, his hands shaking at his sides, his whole body wanting to disappear into the floor tiles. "Oops," Brett said, grinning. "My bad, Mouse." His friends laughed. That awful sound that makes shame burn hotter than anger. Marcus didn't say anything. He never said anything. He just grabbed napkins from the dispenser with hands that wouldn't stop trembling and tried to clean himself up while Brett walked away high-fiving his crew. A girl at the next table whispered to her friend, "Why doesn't he just stand up for himself?" Marcus heard her. He always heard them. The answer was simple and complicated, and something he couldn't explain to people who'd never felt this small. Standing up meant getting hurt worse. Standing up meant becoming an even bigger target. Standing up meant risking the one thing he still had left, his ability to survive until graduation. He threw the napkins away and walked out of the cafeteria with sauce still on his shirt, his backpack clutched against his chest like a shield. Nobody followed him. Nobody ever did. Phoenix Community College wasn't supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be different from high school, supposed to be where people grew up and acted like adults. But Brett Hawkins had transferred here from Arizona State after getting kicked out for fighting, and he'd brought his particular brand of cruelty with him. For reasons Marcus couldn't understand, Brett had decided to make him his personal project. Maybe it was because Marcus was small, 5'6" and barely 130 pounds. Maybe it was because Marcus was quiet, the kind of quiet that made him invisible until someone wanted a victim. Maybe it was because Marcus ate lunch alone and walked to class alone and never talked back no matter what Brett did to him. 3 months. That's how long it had been going on. 3 months of hell. Marcus walked to the bathroom and locked himself in a stall. He pulled off his shirt and tried to rinse the sauce out in the sink, but it just spread the stain around. His hands were still shaking. His chest felt tight like someone was sitting on it. The bathroom door opened. Marcus froze. "I know you're in here, Mouse." Brett's voice echoed off the tile walls. Marcus's heart started pounding so hard it hurt. He stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, praying Brett would just leave. "Come on out. I want to talk to you." Marcus knew that tone. Nothing good ever followed that tone. The stall door exploded inward as Brett kicked it. The lock broke, and the door slammed into Marcus's shoulder, knocking him against the toilet. Pain shot down his arm. Brett grabbed him by the hair and shoved his face toward the toilet bowl. "You made me look bad in front of everyone, walking out like that. Now you're gonna apologize." "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered immediately. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." Not to me, idiot. Brett pushed his face closer to the water. To the toilet. Tell the toilet you're sorry for being such a worthless piece of... The bathroom door opened again. Dude, campus security is coming, one of Brett's friends called out. Brett let go. Marcus's head cracked against the stall divider as he fell. Brett leaned down close and whispered, Next time, Mouse. Next time, I'm gonna make you drink it. Then they were gone, laughing as they left. Marcus sat on the bathroom floor with his shoulder throbbing and his head ringing and sauce still on his skin. He wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come anymore. He'd cried so much in the first few weeks that he'd run out. Now there was just this hollow, empty feeling where normal emotions used to be. He pulled himself up using the sink. His reflection looked back at him. Dark circles under his eyes, a bruise forming on his cheekbone from last week, his black hair messy and sauce-stained. 19 years old, and he looked like something broken. The worst part wasn't the physical stuff. The worst part was how it made him feel about himself. Like maybe Brett was right. Maybe he was worthless. Maybe he deserved this for being too small, too quiet, too weak to fight back. His phone buzzed. A text from his mum. Working late again tonight, sweetie. There's leftovers in the fridge. Love you. Elena Rivera. The only good thing in Marcus's life. She worked as a night janitor at Phoenix General Hospital, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m., 6 days a week. Before that, she worked day shifts at a grocery store. She'd been working 2 jobs since Marcus's father left when he was 12, doing everything she could to keep them afloat and help Marcus get through college. Marcus texted back, Love you too, Mom. Be safe. He couldn't tell her about Brett. She had enough to worry about, enough stress. She didn't need to know her son was getting tortured every day at the college she was killing herself to help him afford. Marcus changed into his gym shirt from his backpack. It was wrinkled and smelled like old sweat, but at least it didn't have sauce on it. He looked at the schedule on his phone. 2 more classes today, literature and computer programming. He couldn't do it. He couldn't sit in those rooms and pretend everything was fine and take notes like a normal person. Not today. Not after the cafeteria and the bathroom and Brett's whispered threat. Marcus made a decision. He walked out of the building, out of campus, and started the long journey home. He'd miss his afternoon classes, but he didn't care. Sometimes survival meant retreat. The problem was the bus didn't run for another hour, and he didn't have money for an Uber. So Marcus did what he'd been doing for the past 2 weeks. He walked 5 miles through North Phoenix. It took 90 minutes, but it was free, and nobody bothered him. Usually he took the main roads, stayed where there were people and stores and traffic. But today Marcus wanted to disappear completely. Today he wanted to be somewhere nobody could see him. So he took the old desert road. It wasn't really a road anymore. It used to be a service route for maintenance vehicles back when they were building the new housing developments on the north side. But construction had stalled 3 years ago when the housing market crashed, and now the half-finished road just sat there, empty and forgotten, cutting through a stretch of desert that hadn't been developed yet. Most people didn't even know it existed. Marcus had only found it because he'd gotten lost one day and stumbled onto it. Now he used it when he wanted to be completely alone. The sun was still up when he started walking, but Phoenix in November got cold fast once the sun went down. By 7 p.m., it could drop from 70 degrees to 45, and Marcus was only wearing a thin gym shirt and jeans. His hoodie was in his backpack, but he didn't want to stop and dig it out. He just wanted to keep moving. The desert stretched out on both sides of the cracked asphalt. Scrub brush and cacti and rocks and sand going on forever. The sky was turning orange and purple as the sun got lower. It was actually kind of beautiful out here when you weren't thinking about bathrooms and toilets and being called a mouse. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He pulled it out. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Hey, Mouse. Heard you left campus crying. LOL." Then another one. "Brett says he's gonna finish what he started tomorrow." Then another. "Just kill yourself already. Nobody wants you here." Marcus's hands started shaking again. He put the phone away without responding. Responding never helped. It just made things worse. His therapist, the free one the college provided for 6 sessions, had told him to document everything. Take screenshots, report it to administration, build a case. Marcus had tried that. He'd reported Brett twice. The first time, the dean's office said they'd look into it, and nothing happened. The second time, they called Brett in for a meeting, and Brett swore he was just joking around, that Marcus was too sensitive, that it was all in good fun. After that second meeting, Brett had cornered Marcus in the parking lot and said, "You try to get me in trouble again, and I'll put you in the hospital. That's a promise, not a threat." So Marcus stopped reporting it. He just endured it. The sun dropped below the horizon, and suddenly the temperature fell like someone had opened a freezer door. Marcus rubbed his arms, trying to generate warmth. His breath started coming out in little clouds. Maybe he should have taken the main road. At least there would be light there. Street lights and car headlights and store signs. Out here there was nothing but the moon and stars. His sneakers crunched on the broken asphalt. The sound was the only thing breaking the silence. That and his breathing, which was getting harder because the cold air hurt his lungs. Marcus's mind drifted while he walked. He thought about his mom, about how disappointed she'd be if she knew he'd skipped class. She worked so hard to give him opportunities she'd never had. Elena had gotten pregnant with Marcus when she was 18, and Marcus's dad had stuck around just long enough to make her believe they were a family before he vanished. She'd raised Marcus alone, working whatever jobs she could get, sacrificing everything. And what was Marcus doing with the opportunity she'd given him? Getting bullied, skipping class, failing. He was failing computer programming, the one class he was supposed to be good at, the one thing he actually enjoyed. But it was hard to focus on code when your brain was constantly running survival calculations, when you were always looking over your shoulder, when you flinched every time someone walked past you in the hallway. A coyote howled somewhere in the distance. The sound made Marcus jump. He'd heard there were coyotes out here, also javelinas and the occasional mountain lion. He walked faster. The cold was really biting now. His fingers were going numb. His ears hurt. He pulled his arms inside his shirt like a turtle, trying to conserve heat. Just another mile, maybe less. Then he'd hit the residential area where the bus stop was. 45 more minutes, and he'd be home in his warm apartment with the space heater and the leftovers his mom had mentioned. That's when Marcus saw something off the road. At first, he thought it was trash. A black garbage bag, or maybe a tarp that had blown off a construction site. But something about the shape made him look closer. It wasn't trash. It was a person. Marcus stopped walking. His brain tried to process what his eyes were seeing. Someone was lying in the sand about 20 feet off the road, half hidden behind a large rock and some brush. Maybe they were homeless, sleeping rough. Maybe they were drunk. Maybe they were... Marcus's stomach dropped. They weren't moving. At all. No rising and falling of breathing. No shifting or adjusting position. Just completely still. "Hello?" Marcus called out. His voice came out weak and shaky. No response. Every instinct told Marcus to keep walking. Don't get involved. This is how people get killed in horror movies. Call 911 and let them handle it. But his feet were already carrying him off the road, into the sand and rocks, toward the motionless figure. As he got closer, details emerged that made his heart start pounding. It was a woman. She was lying on her side. Her hands were behind her back. No, not behind her back, bound behind her back. Wire wrapped around her wrists so tight it had cut into the skin. "Oh God," Marcus whispered. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." He ran the last few feet and dropped to his knees beside her. His hands hovered over her, not knowing where to touch, what to do. She was older, maybe 60 or 70, hard to tell in the moonlight. She was wearing black jeans and boots and a black leather vest over a dark shirt. Her face was bruised purple and swollen. Blood had dried under her nose and at the corner of her mouth. Her ankles were bound, too. More wire, twisted tight, biting into the skin above her boots. Marcus's brain was screaming at him. Someone did this. Someone beat her and tied her up and left her out here. That someone might still be nearby. But his hands were already reaching for her neck, pressing 2 fingers against the cold skin just below her jaw, searching for what he knew he wouldn't find. Nothing. No pulse. She was... Wait. There. So faint he almost missed it. A tiny flutter under his fingertips. Once. Twice. Barely there, but there. "You're alive," Marcus breathed. "Oh, thank God you're alive." He yanked his phone out of his pocket and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. 911, what's your emergency? "There's a woman." The words tumbled out of Marcus in a rush. "She's hurt, really bad. She's tied up. She's barely breathing. You have to send someone, right now." "Sir, I need you to stay calm. Where are you located?" Marcus looked around frantically. "I'm on the old desert service road, the one that goes north from the college, near the abandoned construction site."
"Can you give me cross streets?"
"I don't know. There aren't any cross streets. It's just desert." Marcus's voice was rising, panic taking over. "She's dying. She doesn't have time for me to figure out cross streets." "Sir, I understand you're upset, but I need..." "There's a big rock formation about a 1/4 mile in that looks like a thumb pointing up, and a dried creek bed running parallel to the road. That's all I know." The operator's voice stayed calm and professional. "Okay, I'm dispatching emergency services now. They'll use your phone's GPS to locate you. Stay on the line with me. Can you tell me about the woman's condition?" Marcus looked down at her. "She's unconscious. Her face is really bruised and swollen. She's tied up with wire around her wrists and ankles. It's cold out here. Really cold. I think she has hypothermia or something." "Is she breathing?" Marcus leaned down, putting his ear near her mouth. He felt the faintest exhale against his cheek. "Yes, barely." "Good. Don't try to move her. Keep her warm if you can, but don't move her. Paramedics are approximately 25 minutes away." 25 minutes. In this cold, with barely a pulse. Marcus looked at the woman's gray face, her purple lips. Then he looked at his gym shirt, the thin fabric that wasn't keeping him warm, the hoodie in his backpack. He made a decision. "I'm putting the phone down, but I'm staying here," Marcus told the operator. He set the phone on the ground, speaker on, and pulled his backpack off. He dug out his hoodie, navy blue, slightly worn, the warmest thing he owned. Without thinking about what it meant for him, without calculating the risk, he draped it over the woman's torso and tucked it around her shoulders. The cold hit him immediately. The temperature had dropped into the low 40s now, and all he had was a thin gym shirt. The wind cut right through it. Marcus's hands went to the wire around her wrists. It was the kind of wire used for fencing, thin but strong. Whoever did this had twisted it tight with pliers. The ends were sharp and had punctured her skin. Blood had frozen around the wounds. "I'm going to get these off you," Marcus said, even though she couldn't hear him. Talking helped. Talking made him feel less terrified. He worked his fingers under the wire, ignoring the sharp edges cutting into his own skin. He twisted and pulled, and finally got enough slack to slip it over her hands. Her wrists were raw and bloody underneath. The wire had cut so deep he could see tissue. He did the same for her ankles, his fingers going numb from cold as he worked. When the last wire came free, he threw it aside and rubbed her wrists and ankles gently, trying to get blood flowing. "Paramedics are tracking your location," the operator said through the phone. "Estimated arrival is now 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Marcus looked at the woman, then at his hoodie covering her, then at his own arms breaking out in goosebumps. He was already shivering. 20 minutes in this cold would be bad, but for her, with her age and injuries and whatever she'd already been through, 20 minutes might be too long. He thought about his mom, about how she'd do anything to help someone in need, how she'd raised him to be the kind of person who didn't walk away when someone needed help. He thought about Brett Hawkins calling him a mouse, about feeling small and worthless and invisible. And then Marcus did something that would change his life forever. He lay down beside the woman in the cold desert sand. He pressed himself against her back, wrapping his arms around her torso, trying to share whatever body heat he had left. The sand was frozen underneath him, and the cold came through his jeans immediately. But Marcus didn't move. He held her tight and started talking. "My name is Marcus," he said, his teeth already chattering. "Marcus Rivera. I'm 19. I go to the community college down the road." The woman didn't respond, didn't move, but her chest rose and fell against his arms, shallow breaths that told him she was still fighting. "You're going to be okay," Marcus continued, squeezing her gently. "Help is coming. You just have to hold on. Just a little longer." The shivering started in his legs, then spread upward through his whole body. Violent shakes that made his bones ache. He pulled her closer, tucking his hoodie tighter around her shoulders. "I live with my mom," he said, forcing the words out between chattering teeth. "Just the two of us. She works at the hospital. Night shift janitor. She's probably there right now, mopping floors and cleaning rooms, and she doesn't even know I'm out here." The operator's voice came through the phone speaker, tinny and distant. "Keep talking to her. The sound of your voice might help keep her conscious." So Marcus talked. He told the unconscious woman about the orange cat behind his apartment building, how he'd been leaving food out every morning for 3 weeks, and the cat was finally starting to trust him. He told her about his favorite movies, old westerns that his mom used to watch with him when he was little. He told her about wanting to be a programmer, about building his first computer from salvaged parts when he was 15. And then, because the cold was making him delirious, and because she couldn't judge him, and because dying in the desert made everything feel honest and raw, he told her the truth. "I got bullied today," Marcus whispered. "This guy, Brett, he dumped my lunch on me in front of everyone. Then he shoved my face toward a toilet and told me next time he'd make me drink from it." His voice cracked. "I'm such a coward. I just take it. Every single day I just take it. And I hate myself for it. I hate being small and weak and scared all the time." The woman's breathing changed slightly, a tiny catch in her throat. "I feel like I'm worthless," Marcus continued, the words pouring out now. "Like maybe he's right about me. Maybe I am a mouse. Maybe I deserve—" He stopped. His whole body was shaking so hard it hurt. He couldn't feel his fingers anymore, couldn't feel his toes. His thoughts were getting fuzzy, like static on a TV. "Stay awake," the operator commanded. "Marcus, you need to stay awake. Keep talking." But talking was getting harder. His lips were numb. His tongue felt thick. He forced out more words, told her about his mom's chicken soup, about the time they went to the Grand Canyon when he was 10, before his dad left, when they were still a family. About the scholarship he'd lost because his grades dropped after the bullying started. Time became meaningless. Could have been 5 minutes or 50. Everything narrowed down to the cold, the shaking, the sound of his own voice getting quieter. Red and blue lights flashed across the desert, painting the rocks and cacti in strobing color. Sirens wailed, getting closer. "They're here," the operator said. "You did so well, Marcus. You saved her life." Marcus tried to respond, but his mouth wouldn't work anymore. His arms were still wrapped around the woman, holding her, but he couldn't feel them. Couldn't feel anything except the cold burrowing deeper into his bones. Voices shouted. Footsteps crunched through sand. Hands grabbed him, trying to pull him away. "No," Marcus tried to say, but it came out as a whisper. "Don't leave her. She needs—" "We've got her, son. We've got both of you. Let go, now." But Marcus's arms were locked. His muscles wouldn't obey. The paramedics had to physically pry his frozen fingers apart. They lifted him onto a stretcher and wrapped him in blankets that felt like fire against his frozen skin. He saw other paramedics working on the woman, moving fast, calling out medical terms he didn't understand. "Elderly female, severe hypothermia, multiple contusions, ligature marks on wrists and ankles. Core temp is reading 89 degrees. Get her on oxygen. Start warming protocol." The world tilted. The stars above spun in circles. Marcus felt himself being loaded into an ambulance, felt the warmth of the heater blasting, felt hands checking his pulse and blood pressure. "The boy's at 92 degrees, someone said. "Moderate hypothermia. How long was he out there?" "Dispatcher says at least 40 minutes, maybe longer." Jesus, at his size? In just a t-shirt? He's lucky to be alive. The ambulance started moving. The siren screamed. Marcus tried to ask about the woman, but his voice wouldn't work. His eyes kept closing even though he didn't want them to. A paramedic's face appeared above him, young and concerned. "Stay with me, Marcus. You're going to be fine. You did a really brave thing tonight." Brave. The word sounded wrong. Marcus wasn't brave. Brave people weren't afraid. Brave people didn't spend their days hiding from bullies and skipping class. But he'd held that woman anyway, even though he was terrified, even though the cold was killing him. He'd held her, and he hadn't let go. The thought followed him down into darkness. He woke up to the sound of crying. His eyelids felt heavy, like someone had glued them shut. It took effort to open them. When he finally did, harsh fluorescent lights made him squint. White ceiling, white walls, the steady beep of machines. Hospital. The crying was coming from beside him. Marcus turned his head, moving felt like pushing through concrete, and saw his mother. Elena Rivera sat in a plastic chair next to his bed, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. She was still wearing her janitor uniform, the blue scrubs with the hospital logo. Her hair was pulled back in the messy bun she always wore for work. "Mom," Marcus croaked. His throat felt like sandpaper. Elena's head snapped up. Her eyes were red and swollen, mascara smeared down her cheeks. When she saw him looking at her, she let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Marcus!" She lunged forward and grabbed his hand, squeezing so tight it hurt. But it was a good hurt. A hurt that meant he was alive and she was there and everything was real. "Oh my God, baby! Oh my God!" She pressed his hand against her wet cheek. "They called me 4 hours ago. Said you were being brought in with severe hypothermia. I thought... She couldn't finish the sentence. She just cried harder. Marcus's own eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." "Sorry?" Elena pulled back, still holding his hand. "Baby, you saved someone's life. You saved a woman who would have died if you hadn't found her." The memory came rushing back.
The woman in the sand. The wire around her wrists. The cold. "Is she alive?" Marcus asked urgently. "The woman, is she—"
"She's alive." Elena smiled through her tears. "She's alive because of you." Relief flooded through Marcus so intensely he felt dizzy. "Where is she? Is she okay?" "She's 3 floors up in the ICU. They brought her core temperature back up. She's going to make it." Elena wiped her eyes. "The doctor said if you hadn't found her when you did, she would have died within the hour. And if you hadn't kept her warm..." She shook her head. "You gave her your hoodie. You laid down with her. You risked your own life." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. It hadn't felt like a choice at the time. It had just felt like the only thing he could do. A doctor came in an hour later, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with kind eyes. She told Marcus things that made his stomach flip.
"Your core body temperature when the ambulance brought you in was 92 degrees Fahrenheit, she explained. "Normal is 98.6. Anything below 95 is considered dangerous. Below 90 can cause cardiac arrest and death." She checked his chart. "You were very close to the threshold where we start seeing organ failure. Your heart rate had dropped to 48 beats per minute. You were semi-conscious and confused. Another 15 to 20 minutes and we might not have been able to save you." Elena made a strangled sound and grabbed Marcus's hand tighter. The doctor looked at him with something like wonder. "You knew you were freezing. You had to have felt yourself shutting down. But you stayed with her anyway. That's not just bravery. That's selflessness at a level we rarely see." After the doctor left, Elena held Marcus while he cried. Not from pain or fear, but from the overwhelming weight of what had almost happened. How close he'd come to dying. How close the woman had come to dying. How one decision on a desert road had almost ended 2 lives.
"I was so scared, Mom," he whispered into her shoulder. "I was so cold, and I thought I was going to die, and I just kept thinking about you, and how you'd be alone." "Shh, baby, shh. You're okay now. You're safe." Elena rocked him like he was still small. "I'm so proud of you. So proud." They kept Marcus for observation. Nurses came and went, checking his vitals, bringing him warm broth that tasted like nothing but felt good going down. His body ached everywhere, a deep bone tiredness that made even breathing feel like work. The cold had done something to him. He couldn't get warm. They piled 3 blankets on him, and he still shivered. They said it would take days for his body to regulate temperature normally again. Around noon, Elena pulled out her phone. "Baby, I need to show you something. The news is covering what happened." She pulled up a video on her phone. Local news.
A reporter standing outside the hospital. "A Phoenix Community College student is being called a hero tonight after saving the life of a 70-year-old woman who'd been beaten and left to die in the desert. 19-year-old Marcus Rivera found Rose Sullivan bound and suffering from severe hypothermia. In an extraordinary act of courage, Rivera gave the woman his only jacket and laid beside her for nearly an hour, sharing his body heat until paramedics arrived. Both were hospitalized with hypothermia, but are expected to make full recoveries."
The screen showed Marcus's student ID photo, then a picture of an older woman with weathered features and fierce eyes. Then footage of the desert road where it happened. Rose Sullivan is a founding member of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, the reporter continued. Police are investigating the assault as a targeted attack by a rival gang. Sullivan's family says Rivera's actions saved not just her life, but preserved a grandmother to 4 children. Elena turned off the video. It's been on every channel. People are calling you a hero. Marcus stared at the ceiling. Hero. That word again. It felt too big for him. Heroes were strong and confident. Heroes didn't get their lunch dumped on them and their faces shoved toward toilets. Heroes weren't afraid of bullies named Brett Hawkins. But he'd saved her. Whatever else was true, that was true. He'd saved Rose Sullivan's life. She wants to see you, Elena said quietly. The woman, Rose. She asked if you'd come up to a room when you're feeling strong enough. Marcus's heart started pounding. When? Whenever you're ready. The doctor said you can use a wheelchair. I want to go now. Elena looked surprised. Baby, you should rest. Please, Mom. I need to see her. I need to know she's really okay. 30 minutes later, Elena was pushing Marcus in a wheelchair toward the elevator. He was dressed in a hospital gown with a blanket over his lap, an IV still attached to his arm. His body felt weak and shaky, but he needed to do this. They rode up to the 3rd floor ICU. The halls smelled like antiseptic and floor wax, the smell of his mother's work. She pushed him past nurses' stations and family waiting areas until they reached room 317. Elena knocked softly. A rough voice called out, "Come in." She pushed Marcus through the doorway, and he got his first real look at the woman he'd saved. Rose Sullivan sat propped up in bed, her dark hair streaked with gray and pulled back from her face. Bruises covered her cheeks and jaw in shades of purple and yellow. Her nose was swollen and bandaged. Her arms, resting on top of the blankets, were covered in intricate tattoos, roses and skulls and wings and words he couldn't read from this distance. Her wrists were wrapped in thick white bandages where the wire had cut her. But her eyes were sharp and bright and fully alive. They locked onto Marcus the moment he entered, and he saw tears immediately spill down her weathered cheeks. "Come here," she said, her voice breaking. "Come here, boy." Elena wheeled him closer to the bed. Rose reached out with both bandaged hands and grabbed Marcus's hands in hers. Her grip was strong, despite the injuries. "You saved my life," Rose said, staring straight into Marcus's eyes. "Do you understand what that means? You laid down in the freezing desert to keep a stranger warm. You gave me your jacket when you were freezing yourself. You held me and talked to me and wouldn't let me die alone." Marcus shook his head, overwhelmed. "I just did what anyone would." "No." Rose's voice went hard. "No, that's bullshit, and we both know it. Most people would have called 911 and walked away. Most people would have waited somewhere warm for the ambulance. Most people wouldn't have risked their own life for someone they didn't know." She squeezed his hands tighter. "I have 4 grandchildren at home. 4 babies who would have grown up without their Nana if you hadn't found me. My daughter, their mother, died 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm all they have left." Her voice broke completely. "You gave them back their Nana. You gave me a chance to see them grow up. That's not something I can ever repay." Marcus felt his own eyes filling with tears. "I'm just glad you're okay." Rose wiped her face with one bandaged hand. "I need to tell you what happened.
You need to understand what you walked into. She took a shaky breath. I've been with the Hells Angels for 50 years. I'm one of the founding members of the Phoenix Charter. That means something in my world. It means respect. It means family. Marcus nodded, not sure what to say. 3 men grabbed me outside a gas station 2 nights ago, Rose continued, her voice getting harder. They were from a rival club, the Diablos. There's been bad blood between our clubs for years, but lately it's gotten worse. Territory disputes, business disagreements. She looked down at her bandaged wrists. They tied me up with wire, beat me, drove me out to that desert road and left me there to die as a message to my club. A message that said, we're not untouchable, that they can get to us whenever they want. Marcus felt sick. People did this? People beat a 70-year-old woman and left her to freeze to death just to send a message. I was lying in that sand for 3 hours before you found me, Rose said quietly. 3 hours of feeling the cold take me piece by piece, feeling my body shut down, knowing I was going to die alone in the dark, thinking about my grandbabies and how I'd never see them again. She looked back up at Marcus, tears streaming freely now. And then I heard your voice, this young, scared voice talking about cats and movies and chicken soup. And I knew I had to fight. I had to hold on because this brave kid was fighting for me. Marcus was crying too now. I didn't know what else to do. I was so scared. I thought we were both going to die out there. But we didn't. Rose pulled him closer, her voice fierce. We didn't die because you wouldn't give up. You're 19 years old, and you have more courage than men twice your size who've been in my club for decades. She looked at Elena, who was crying silently beside the wheelchair. You raised an incredible son. You should be so proud. I am, Elena managed. I am so proud. Rose turned back to Marcus. I heard what you said out there, when you were talking to me, about being bullied, about feeling worthless. Marcus's face went hot with shame. He'd forgotten he'd said all that. I didn't mean, listen to me. Rose's grip turned almost painful. You are not worthless. You are not weak. Someone who can do what you did, give everything they have to save a stranger, that person has more strength than any bully could ever understand. She reached up and touched his face with one bandaged hand. You're family now, you understand? You're pack. And pack protects pack. That's the code we live by. You saved one of ours, so now you're one of ours. Marcus didn't fully understand what she meant, but something in her tone made his spine straighten, made something warm bloom in his chest where the cold had been. My club is going to want to meet you, Rose continued. They're going to want to thank you properly. And they're going to want to make sure everyone knows you're under our protection now. I don't need, Marcus started. Yes, you do. Rose's eyes flashed. You told me about Brett, about what he does to you. That ends now. Nobody touches you again. You understand me? Nobody. Her voice dropped lower, more intense. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Do you have classes tomorrow? Marcus nodded. Monday, yeah. And Brett will be there? Yeah, he's always there. Rose nodded slowly, something calculating in her expression. Okay, good. Then we'll be there too. Marcus didn't understand what Rose meant until Sunday night. They'd kept him in the hospital for 2 more days, monitoring his recovery. His body temperature stabilized. The shaking stopped. but something inside him had changed in ways the doctors couldn't measure. He kept replaying that night in the desert, the feeling of the cold killing him, the choice to stay anyway. Elena picked him up Sunday afternoon. She'd taken time off work, which Marcus knew they couldn't afford, but she insisted. On the drive home, she kept glancing at him like he might disappear. "You're going back to school tomorrow?" she asked carefully. "I have to, Mom. I've already missed 3 days."
"Baby, after what you've been through, I'm fine, really." But his hands were shaking in his lap just thinking about it, about walking into that campus, about seeing Brett. Elena pulled up to their apartment building and turned off the car but didn't move. "Marcus, what Rose said about her club, about protection. Do you know what that means?" "Not really." "I looked them up." Elena's voice was tight. "The Hells Angels. They're not just a motorcycle club. They're serious people, dangerous people when they need to be." Marcus looked at his mom. "She saved my life too, Mom, in a way. She made me feel like I matter." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You've always mattered. You've always been brave. You just couldn't see it." That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in his narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, his phone on his chest. Around 11 p.m., it buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Tomorrow changes everything. Be ready. M.R." M.R. Mama Rose. Marcus's heart started pounding. What did that mean? Be ready for what? He texted back, "Ready for what?" The response came immediately. "You'll see. Trust me." Marcus didn't sleep at all after that. He lay awake watching the hours tick by on his alarm clock, anxiety and anticipation churning in his stomach. At 6 a.m., he gave up and got in the shower. Elena made him breakfast, even though she'd worked all night. Scrambled eggs and toast, his favorite. They ate in silence, both pretending everything was normal. "You want me to drive you?" Elena offered. "No, I'll take the bus." Marcus needed to prove to himself he could do this, that he could walk onto that campus and face whatever came next. Elena hugged him at the door, holding on longer than usual. "You call me if you need anything, anything at all. I don't care if I'm sleeping, you call." "I will, Mom. I promise." The bus ride felt endless. Marcus sat in the back, his backpack clutched against his chest, watching Phoenix wake up outside the window. Other passengers got on and off. Nobody looked at him. Nobody knew who he was or what he'd done. The bus dropped him at the campus entrance at 7:45 a.m. His first class didn't start until 8:30, but Marcus had always come early to avoid the crowds, to find corners where Brett wouldn't see him. He stepped off the bus and stopped walking. His brain couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. The entire parking lot was full of motorcycles. Not just a few, not a dozen, hundreds of them. Chrome glinting in the early morning sun, arranged in perfect rows that stretched as far as he could see. Big bikes, the kind you heard from blocks away. Harleys and custom jobs, and machines that looked like they'd been built for war. And standing beside each motorcycle was a person in leather. Men and women, most of them older, 40s to 70s, all wearing black leather vests with patches on the back. That same winged skull Marcus had seen on Rose's vest. Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, Phoenix. They stood silent and still, facing the bus stop. Facing him. Watching him. Marcus's legs wouldn't move. His heart hammered so hard he could feel it in his throat. Students were pressed against windows all over campus, staring out at the sea of motorcycles and bikers. Teachers stood in doorways. Security guards huddled near the main building, talking urgently into radios. Everyone had stopped what they were doing to watch. And then the crowd of bikers parted down the middle, creating a clear path from where Marcus stood to the center of the parking lot. Rose walked through the path toward him. She moved slowly, still recovering from her injuries, but she walked tall and proud. She wore black jeans and boots and her leather vest with that winged skull. Her face was still bruised, but her eyes were fierce and bright. Behind her walked two massive men, both easily 6'4", both with gray beards and arms like tree trunks. Marcus's hands started shaking. He didn't know what was happening, didn't know what he was supposed to do. Rose stopped 3 feet in front of him, close enough that Marcus could see the stitches on her cheekbone, the fading bruises on her jaw. "Good morning, Marcus," she said quietly, just for him. "What is this?" Marcus whispered. "What's happening?" "This is gratitude." Rose turned so her voice would carry across the parking lot. It was amazing how loud she could project without yelling. "This is respect. This is family." She faced the crowd of bikers and students and teachers and security guards, everyone listening. "This is Marcus Rivera," Rose called out, her voice ringing clear. "This is the young man who found me dying in the desert. This is the young man who took off his only jacket and wrapped it around me, even though he was freezing. This is the young man who lay down beside me in the sand and held me and talked to me for an hour while we both nearly died from the cold." Her voice got thick with emotion, but she didn't stop. "This young man has more courage in his small body than most people find in their entire lives. This young man saved my life and asked for nothing in return. This young man gave me back to my grandchildren. This young man is a hero." Marcus felt tears starting, but he couldn't wipe them away because his hands were shaking too badly. Rose turned back to him and put her hand on his shoulder. Her grip was strong and warm and solid. "You're family now," she said quietly, just for him again. "You're Pack, and Pack protects Pack. That's our code. That's our law." She raised her voice again. "Brothers and sisters, show your respect." And in one smooth, synchronized motion, all 198 bikers bowed their heads. Not a nod, a real bow. Deep and slow, heads down, hands at their sides. A gesture of honor and recognition, and something sacred that Marcus didn't fully understand but felt all the way to his bones. The silence was complete. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Just 198 people in black leather bowing to a 19-year-old college student who'd spent the last 3 months being called a mouse. Something broke open in Marcus's chest. Something that had been locked tight for so long he'd forgotten it was there. Tears poured down his face, and he couldn't stop them, didn't want to stop them. His whole body shook, but not from cold this time. From something bigger than cold. From being seen. From mattering. From having value not because he was big or strong or fearless, but because he'd made one choice on a dark desert road. Rose pulled him into a hug that smelled like leather and cigarettes and motor oil. She held him tight while he cried against her shoulder, his hands gripping her vest like he was drowning and she was the only solid thing in the world. "Nobody touches you again," she whispered in his ear, fierce and protective. "You understand me? You're protected now. Anyone who messes with you messes with all of us. Every single one of us." Marcus nodded against her shoulder, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. When Rose finally let him go, she pressed something into his hand. A patch.
black leather with red stitching. It said, "Protected by HAMC," with that winged skull emblem beneath the words. "You wear this," Rose said, "and everyone knows. Everyone understands." Marcus looked down at the patch, then up at Rose, then out at the crowd of bikers who were standing tall again, watching him with expressions that ranged from respect to something like pride. One of the massive men who'd walked with Rose stepped forward.
His vest said "Road Captain" on it, and his face was weathered like old leather, with scars that told stories Marcus couldn't imagine. His name patch said Bull. Bull looked across the parking lot to where a group of students stood near the main building entrance. Marcus followed his gaze, and his stomach dropped. Brett Hawkins stood there with his crew. 5 guys who followed Brett everywhere, who laughed at his jokes and helped him make Marcus's life hell. But they weren't laughing now. They were pale and quiet, pressed against the building like they wanted to disappear into the bricks. Bull walked toward them slowly, deliberately. His boots made heavy sounds on the pavement. He didn't hurry, didn't need to. His size and presence did all the work. Marcus watched as Bull stopped in front of Brett, who had maybe 4 inches and 50 pounds on Marcus, but looked like a child next to the road captain. The distance was too far for Marcus to hear what Bull said, but he saw Brett's face go white. Saw him nod, quickly, frantically. Saw him take 3 steps back. Saw his crew scatter like roaches when the light comes on. Bull said something else, his voice too quiet to carry, but his body language crystal clear. Then he pointed at Marcus, then back at Brett. The message couldn't have been clearer if he'd painted it on a billboard. Touch Marcus and answer to us. Bull walked back to where Rose and Marcus stood. He looked down at Marcus, and despite his intimidating appearance, his eyes were kind. "You won't have any more problems with that boy," Bull said, his voice a deep rumble. "Or anyone else. We'll make sure of it." "I don't want you to hurt anyone," Marcus said quickly. Bull smiled, a surprisingly warm expression. "Don't need to hurt anyone, son. Just need to make sure they understand consequences. Understanding is a powerful teacher." Rose put her arm around Marcus's shoulders. "My brothers and sisters are going to stay for a while. Make sure you get to class safely. Make sure everyone sees and understands." "All day?" Marcus asked, overwhelmed. "As long as it takes." Rose squeezed his shoulder. "Go on now. You've got class at 8:30. We'll be here when you're done." Marcus walked toward his first class in a daze, his legs shaky, the patch clutched in his hand. Students stared as he passed. Some looked afraid. Some looked curious. Some looked at him with something like awe. Brett and his crew had vanished completely. Marcus didn't see them anywhere. His literature class was in the humanities building, 2nd floor. As Marcus climbed the stairs, he saw bikers taking positions around campus, not threatening anyone, not blocking paths, just present, visible, a constant reminder. Professor Chen did a double take when Marcus walked in. "Mr. Rivera, good to see you back. Are you feeling all right?" "Yes, ma'am. Much better. I saw the news. What you did was extraordinary." Other students were filing in, all of them staring at Marcus. Whispers followed him to his usual seat in the back corner. "That's him. He saved that biker lady. Did you see all those motorcycles? Brett transferred schools. His dad pulled him out over the weekend." That last one made Marcus's head snap up. Brett was gone? During class, Marcus couldn't concentrate. He kept looking out the window at the parking lot full of motorcycles, at Bull and other bikers standing in small groups, talking quietly, making sure their presence was known. When the class ended, Marcus walked out and found Rose waiting in the hallway. "I thought you'd be—" Marcus started. "I'm not leaving you alone on your first day back,"
Rose said firmly. "Where's your next class?" "Computer programming, in the tech building." "Let's go." They walked across campus together, Rose moving slowly because of her injuries, but refusing help. Other bikers fell into formation around them. Not crowding, just accompanying, making a statement. Students moved out of their way. Teachers nodded respectfully. Campus security watched, but didn't approach. When they reached the tech building, Rose said, "We'll be right outside when you're done." Marcus's programming professor, Dr. Martinez, pulled him aside after class. "Marcus, I want you to know your assignment deadline is extended. Given what you've been through, take all the time you need." "Thank you, sir." "And, Marcus?" Dr. Martinez looked uncomfortable. "I heard about the bullying. I'm sorry I didn't notice. I should have paid more attention." "It's okay." "No, it's not. But it won't happen again. I promise you that." At lunch, Marcus walked into the cafeteria, expecting to eat alone like always. Instead, Rose was there with a group of bikers, taking up 3 tables near the windows. She waved him over. "Sit," she commanded, patting the chair next to her. Marcus sat. A woman with short gray hair and kind eyes pushed a tray toward him. "Got you a burger and fries, honey. You need to eat. You're too skinny." "Thank you," Marcus managed. Rose introduced everyone. Bull, the road captain. Snake, the sergeant-at-arms. Jax, the secretary. Diesel, the treasurer. Women named Phoenix and Raven and Storm. Names that sounded like rebellion and freedom and power. They treated Marcus like he was one of them, like he belonged. Asked him about his classes, his major, his plans. Listened when he talked about programming and building computers. "You're good with tech?" Diesel asked. He was maybe 55, built like a linebacker gone slightly soft, with intelligent eyes behind wire-frame glasses. "I run a small manufacturing business, trying to update our computer systems. Want to make some money on the side?" Marcus blinked. "Seriously?" "Serious as a heart attack. I'll pay you $25 an hour. Better than minimum wage, right?" That's incredible. Yes, thank you." Rose smiled. "We take care of our own, Marcus. You're going to learn that." After lunch, they walked Marcus to his afternoon classes. By the end of the day, the entire campus knew who Marcus was and what he represented. The kid under Hell's Angels' protection. The kid you didn't mess with unless you wanted serious problems. But something else happened, too. Students who'd never talked to him before approached cautiously, genuinely. A girl from his literature class asked if he wanted to join their study group. A guy from programming invited him to a hackathon next month. People saw him now. Really saw him. At 4 p.m., as Marcus was leaving his last class, Rose gathered all 198 bikers in the parking lot one more time. She made Marcus stand at the front while she addressed everyone. "This is what we do," Rose said, her voice carrying across the campus. "We protect the people who protect us. We stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. We honor courage wherever we find it." She looked at Marcus. "This boy showed us what real courage looks like, and we'll never forget it." The bikers started their engines all at once. The sound was deafening, a thunder that rolled across campus and echoed off buildings. Marcus felt it in his chest, in his bones, that raw power and solidarity. They pulled out in formation, 2 by 2, a river of chrome and leather and roaring engines. Students watched from windows and doorways. Some pulled out their phones to record it. Others just stood in awe. Rose stayed until the end. She hugged Marcus one more time. "We'll be back next Monday," she said, "and probably the Monday after that, until everyone understands this is permanent. You're ours now." "Thank you," Marcus whispered, For everything. No, baby. Rose touched his face gently. Thank you. You gave me my life back. This is the least we can do.
She climbed onto her bike, a big Harley that looked like it had been with her for decades.
Oh, and Marcus? Check your bank account tonight. The club took up a collection. For your tuition.
Before Marcus could respond, she was gone, following the others down the street until they disappeared. Marcus stood in the empty parking lot as the sun started to set, holding the protection patch in his hand. His phone buzzed. A notification from his bank. Deposit received. $10,000. He sat down right there on the curb and cried. Not from sadness or fear, but from the overwhelming reality that his life had changed completely. That he mattered. That he was seen. That one choice in the desert had transformed everything. A shadow fell across him. Marcus looked up, expecting another biker, but it was Dr. Martinez from his programming class. You okay, Marcus? Marcus wiped his eyes and nodded. Yeah, I'm okay. Actually, I think I'm better than okay. Doctor. Martinez sat down beside him on the curb. That was quite a statement they made today. They're protecting me because I saved one of them. I know. I heard the whole story. Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? I was bullied in college too. Engineering student, small like you, quiet like you. It almost destroyed me. But I survived it, and now I make sure I pay attention to my students. I wish I'd paid more attention to you sooner. It's not your fault. Maybe not, but I can do better going forward. He stood up and offered Marcus his hand. Come on, let me give you a ride home. Your mom's probably worried. Marcus took his hand and let the professor pull him up. As they walked to the faculty parking lot, Marcus realized something fundamental had shifted. Not just in how other people saw him, but in how he saw himself. He'd spent 3 months believing Brett's version of who he was. Small, weak, worthless, a mouse. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, he'd faced death in the desert and chose courage over safety, chose a stranger's life over his own comfort, chose to act instead of walking away. That wasn't weakness. That was strength. And 198 bikers had recognized it. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. The following Monday, 32 motorcycles showed up. Marcus had wondered if it was a one-time thing, if Rose's grand gesture was complete, and now life would return to whatever normal looked like. But at 7:45 a.m., as his bus pulled up to campus, there they were again. Not 198 this time, but enough. More than enough to make the point. Bull was there, and Diesel, and Phoenix, and a dozen others Marcus recognized from the week before. They stood beside their bikes, arms crossed, watching as Marcus stepped off the bus. Rose wasn't with them. Bull walked over and explained, Mama Rose is still recovering. Doctor's orders to rest. But she made us promise we'd be here. You don't have to do this every week, Marcus said, though something in his chest loosened knowing they'd come back. Yeah, we do. Bo's expression was serious. This isn't charity, Marcus. This is what family does. Get used to it. The pattern established itself quickly. Every Monday, bikers showed up, sometimes 20, sometimes 40, rotating through the club membership so everyone got a chance to participate. They'd stay for the morning, visible and present, then most would leave around noon. But a few always remained until Marcus's last class ended. The campus transformed around Marcus in ways that felt surreal. Students who'd watched him get bullied, who'd laughed or looked away or pretended not to see, now said hello in the hallways.
Some apologized awkwardly, saying they hadn't known it was so bad, hadn't realized, should have done something. Marcus didn't know what to do with those apologies. Part of him wanted to be angry, wanted to ask why they needed 198 bikers to make them care. But mostly he was just tired of carrying that anger. So he said it was okay, and tried to mean it. Brett's disappearance left a vacuum. Without him, his crew scattered. Some dropped out. Others kept their heads down and stopped bothering anyone. The cafeteria felt different now. Quieter in some ways, safer in others. 3 weeks after that first Monday, a girl from Marcus's literature class sat down across from him at lunch. Her name was Jasmine, and she had curly hair pulled back in a headband and nervous energy. "Can I sit here?" she asked, even though she was already sitting. "Sure," Marcus said, confused. "I wanted to apologize." Jasmine looked down at her sandwich, then back up at him. "I was there that day Brett dumped your lunch. I saw the whole thing. I saw it happen a dozen times, actually, and I never did anything. I told myself it wasn't my business, that getting involved would make me a target too." Marcus didn't know what to say. "It's okay." "No, it's not." Jasmine's voice was firm. "I was a coward. I'm still kind of a coward. But I'm trying to be better. So I wanted to say I'm sorry, and also that you're really brave, and also that if you ever want company at lunch, I'm available." Something warm bloomed in Marcus's chest. "I'd like that." Jasmine became a regular lunch companion. Then she brought her roommate, Taylor, who was studying graphic design. Then Taylor brought his boyfriend, Chris. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had a lunch table with actual friends, people who asked about his programming projects and laughed at his jokes and invited him to things. It felt foreign and wonderful and terrifying. Rose called him every Wednesday evening like clockwork. She'd check in, ask about classes, make sure nobody was bothering him. Marcus found himself looking forward to those calls more than he wanted to admit. "How are the grandkids?" he always asked. "Growing like weeds. Sarah got accepted to ASU for veterinary school. The twins made the hockey playoffs." Rose's voice always softened when she talked about them. "They ask about you, want to know when you're coming to visit." "Visit?" "Yeah, baby, we're having a club barbecue this Sunday. You should come. Bring your mama if she's not working." Marcus's first instinct was to say no. The thought of walking into a clubhouse full of bikers scared him, despite everything. But Rose's voice held something that sounded like hope, like this mattered to her. "Okay," Marcus heard himself say. "What time?" Sunday afternoon found Marcus and Elena pulling up to a large warehouse-style building on the east side of Phoenix. The parking lot was packed with motorcycles and pickup trucks. Music and voices drifted from inside. Elena gripped the steering wheel, not moving. "Baby, are you sure about this?" "Rose invited us, Mom. She wants us here." "These are dangerous people." "They're Rose's people. That makes them good people." Elena looked at her son, and Marcus saw something like wonder in her eyes. "When did you get so brave?" "I've always been this scared, Mom. I'm just doing things anyway now." They walked in together, Marcus wearing his protection patch on his jacket, Elena in her best jeans and a nice blouse she saved for church. The warehouse had been converted into a clubhouse with pool tables and a bar and long tables set up for food. At least 100 people filled the space, bikers and their families, kids running around, the smell of grilled meat and cigarette smoke. Rose spotted them immediately and came over, moving better now, most of the bruising faded. She hugged Marcus tight, then turned to Elena. "Mrs. Rivera, thank you for coming. Thank you for raising such an incredible son." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for protecting him."
He protected me first. I'm just returning the favor. Rose led them through the crowd, introducing them to everyone. Marcus shook hands with men whose arms were bigger than his legs, with women whose faces held stories of hard lives survived. Everyone treated him with respect that still felt unreal. Bull came over, carrying a beer and a soda. He handed the soda to Marcus. "You're not 21 yet, so no beer. But when you turn legal, your first one's on me." "Thank you." "How's that work going with Diesel?" Bull asked. "Really good. I updated his whole inventory system. He said it's saving him hours every week." "He's happy. Told everyone you're a computer genius." Marcus felt his face heat. "I'm not a genius. I just know how to code." "Take the compliment, kid." Bull clapped him on the shoulder, hard enough to make Marcus stumble. "You're allowed to be good at things." 4 kids came running over, ranging from maybe 8 to 17.
The oldest, a girl with Rose's fierce eyes and long dark hair, stopped in front of Marcus.
"You're him," she said. "You're Marcus, the one who saved Nana." "Yeah," Marcus managed. "That's me." The girl threw her arms around him in a hug that knocked the breath out of him. "Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's all we have. If you hadn't found her..." Her voice broke. Marcus hugged her back awkwardly, not sure what to do with his hands. Rose came over and put her hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sarah, honey, let the boy breathe." Sarah pulled back, wiping her eyes. "Sorry. I just needed to say thank you in person." "You're welcome," Marcus said quietly. The 3 younger kids, the twins and another boy, looked at Marcus with something like awe. One of the twins, maybe 13, said, "Nana says you laid in the desert with her for an hour and almost died." "I didn't want her to be alone," Marcus said simply. The other twin looked at his brother, then back at Marcus. "That's the coolest thing ever." They pulled Marcus over to the food tables, loading a plate for him with burgers and ribs and potato salad. Sarah stayed close, asking about college and programming and his life. The twins and their younger brother talked over each other, telling Marcus about their hockey team and their video games and 100 other things. Elena stood with Rose, watching. Marcus caught his mom's eye across the room, and she smiled. Really smiled. The kind of smile he hadn't seen since before his dad left. A woman with short-cropped gray hair and a scar across her cheek came up to Marcus while he was eating. Her vest said, "Phoenix, member since 1999. "I wanted to tell you something," she said, her voice rough like she'd smoked too many cigarettes. "My son was bullied in high school, 10th grade. It got so bad he tried to kill himself." Her eyes were wet, but she didn't look away. "He survived, thank God, but he's never been the same."
He's 25 now and still struggles. Marcus's throat tightened. "I'm sorry."
"Don't be sorry. Just know that what you did out in that desert, you showed him something important. You showed him there are good people in the world, people who don't walk away. That matters more than you know." She squeezed his shoulder and walked away before Marcus could respond. A veteran with a prosthetic leg came over next, introduced himself as Jax, said he'd been in Afghanistan and came back broken in ways that didn't show. "You reminded me why we protect the innocent," he said simply. "Thank you for that." One after another, bikers approached Marcus with stories, with gratitude, with recognition of something he'd done that rippled out in ways he'd never imagined. Bull found Marcus overwhelmed near the pool tables and pulled him aside. "You okay, kid? I know this is a lot." "Why do they care so much?" Marcus asked.
"About what I did?" Bull leaned against the wall, considering the question. "Because most people in this club have been where you are. Small, scared,
pushed around. We know what it takes to stand up anyway, to do the right thing when every instinct says run. He gestured at the crowded room. Half these people were bullied as kids. The other half watched someone they loved suffer. We found each other, found family, found a code worth living by. What code? Protect those who can't protect themselves. Stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Never abandon your people. Bull looked at Marcus. You lived that code in the desert. You didn't know us, didn't know our rules, but you embodied everything we believe in. That's why you're family now. That's why we'll always protect you. Marcus felt tears building, but he blinked them back. I don't deserve all this. That's where you're wrong. Bull's voice was firm. You deserve it, because you gave everything you had without asking what you'd get back. That's character, Marcus. That's who you are. Later, as the sun started setting, Rose gathered everyone for a toast. She raised her beer bottle, and the room went quiet. Most of you know what happened 3 weeks ago. What this young man did for me. She looked at Marcus across the room. I was dying in that desert. I had accepted it, made peace with it. And then Marcus found me. Her voice got thick. He gave me his jacket even though he was freezing. Rose wiped her eyes. The doctor said if he'd stayed out there another 15 minutes, he would have died. But he stayed anyway. That's not just courage. That's love in its purest form. Love for a stranger. Love for another human being. She raised her bottle higher. To Marcus Rivera for showing us what real strength looks like. For giving me back to my family. For being the kind of person this world needs more of. To Marcus! Everyone shouted, raising their drinks. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed, tears finally spilling down his face. Elena wrapped her arm around him, and he leaned into his mother's warmth. After the toast, Diesel approached with a white envelope. Marcus, we took up a collection. The whole club contributed. For your education. Marcus opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $10,000. His knees went weak. I can't accept this. You can, and you will, Rose said firmly, coming up beside Diesel. You saved my life. This is the least we can do. But I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for anything. We know, Rose smiled. That's exactly why you deserve it. That night, Marcus and Elena drove home in silence for a long time. Then Elena pulled over into a parking lot and turned to her son. Do you know what just happened? She asked, her voice shaking. They gave me money. No, baby. They gave you a future. They gave you a chance. She grabbed his hands. With that money, you can focus on school. I can work one job instead of two. We can breathe. Elena started crying. Really crying. The kind of tears that come from years of exhaustion and worry finally releasing. Marcus held his mother while she sobbed. We're going to be okay, she kept saying. We're going to be okay. At home that night, Marcus lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed with texts from Jasmine asking how the barbecue went, from Diesel confirming their Tuesday work session, from Rose checking that he got home safe. 3 weeks ago, he'd been invisible, someone to ignore or torment depending on the day. He'd felt worthless, like maybe Brett was right about him being a mouse. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, he'd always had courage. He'd survived months of bullying and kept going to class. He'd endured humiliation and pain and shame and hadn't given up. He'd walked alone on dark roads rather than ask for help because he didn't want to burden his mother. That was strength. Different from Brett's strength, different from Bull's strength, but strength nonetheless. And in the desert, when it mattered most, when someone needed him, that strength had emerged. Not as anger or violence or domination, as compassion, as sacrifice, as the choice to stay when every instinct said run. Marcus rolled over and looked at the protection patch hanging on his wall. Protected by HAMC. But he didn't need them to protect him from bullies anymore. Brett was gone. His crew was scattered. Campus was safe. What the club had really given him was something more valuable. They'd shown him his own worth. They'd held up a mirror and made him see himself the way they saw him. Not as a mouse. As a hero. And maybe, Marcus thought, as sleep finally took him, maybe he could start seeing himself that way too. The semester moved forward, and Marcus moved with it, but differently now. Where he'd once sat silent in the back of classrooms, he started raising his hand, answering questions, contributing to discussions. His voice still shook sometimes, but he made it work anyway. In computer programming, Dr. Martinez assigned a final project worth 40% of their grade. Design and build a functional application that solved a real problem. Marcus chose to create an inventory management system for small businesses, thinking about Diesel and the other club members who ran their own companies. He worked on it for 3 weeks straight, coding late into the night, testing and debugging and rebuilding when something didn't work. When he demonstrated it in class, Dr. Martinez stopped him halfway through. "Marcus, this is exceptional work."
This is beyond what I expected from any student at this level.
"Thank you, sir."
Have you thought about transferring to a 4-year program? ASU has an excellent computer science department. Marcus had thought about it. With the money from the club, he could actually afford it now.
"I'm applying for next fall."
Dr. Martinez smiled. Good. You're going to do great things. The grade came back. 98 out of 100. An A+. Marcus stared at it for a full minute before texting his mom, who sent back 5 crying face emojis and 3 hearts. December arrived, and with it the end of the semester. The bikers had come every Monday without fail, their numbers varying, but their presence constant. Students had stopped staring. It was just normal now. Marcus Rivera and his biker family. On the second Thursday of December, Marcus was walking to the library when he saw something that made his stomach clench with familiar dread. A freshman, small and thin like Marcus, was backed against a wall by 3 older students. One of them had the kid's backpack and was rifling through it while the other 2 laughed.
"Please give it back,"
the freshman was saying, his voice breaking.
"My laptop's in there."
"Say please again," one of the bullies taunted. "Say it like you mean it." Marcus's first instinct was to look away, to keep walking, to let someone else handle it. That instinct was 3 months old, but still lived in his muscle memory. But his feet stopped moving. His hands clenched into fists. His heart started pounding, not with fear, but with something hotter. Something that felt like anger mixed with recognition. He'd been that kid against the wall. He knew exactly what that freshman was feeling. The shame, the helplessness, the desperate hope that someone, anyone, would step in. Marcus walked over before he could talk himself out of it. "Give him his backpack," Marcus said. His voice came out steadier than he expected. The 3 bullies turned. The one holding the backpack was tall, maybe 6 feet, with the entitled smirk of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "Walk away, small fry,"
This doesn't concern you." "Yeah, it does." Marcus stood his ground even though his legs wanted to run. "Give him his backpack and walk away. Now." The tall one laughed. "Or what? You gonna make us?" Marcus pulled his jacket open slightly, revealing the patch sewn onto his shirt. "Protected by HAMC." The winged skull emblem caught the afternoon light. The change was immediate and dramatic. The tall one's smirk vanished. His eyes went wide. His friends saw the patch too, and took a step back. "You're that kid," one of them said. "The one who saved that biker lady." "I am." Marcus's voice was calm now, almost cold. "And she and her entire club would be very interested to hear about you three cornering a freshman and stealing his property." The tall one dropped the backpack like it had caught fire. "We were just messing around. No harm done." "There's harm in making someone feel small," Marcus said, and he realized he was saying it to his past self as much as to these bullies. "There's harm in using your size to intimidate people who can't fight back. That's coward behavior." The word coward hit them visibly. They shifted uncomfortably. "Now apologize to him," Marcus continued. "Mean it. And then walk away and don't bother anyone like this again. Because next time, I will make a phone call. And you don't want that." They mumbled apologies, barely audible, and scattered fast. The freshman grabbed his backpack with shaking hands. He looked at Marcus with tears in his eyes. "Thank you. Nobody's ever... Thank you." "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "David. David Chen." "I'm Marcus. You eating lunch alone, David?" David nodded, looking down. "Not anymore. Come on. I'll introduce you to some people." Marcus brought David to his table in the cafeteria, where Jasmine and Taylor and Chris were already eating. "This is David. He's sitting with us from now on." Jasmine understood immediately. She smiled warmly at David. "Welcome. You play any video games?" Just like that, David had people. Just like Marcus had people. That night, Marcus called Rose to tell her what happened. She was quiet for a long moment after he finished. "You did good, baby," she finally said, her voice thick. "You became exactly what you needed when you were in David's position. That's how we change the world. One person at a time." "I was scared," Marcus admitted, "but I did it anyway." "That's what courage is. Fear that takes action." Rose paused. "Listen, Marcus, the semester's ending soon. We want to do something special for the last Monday, a proper send-off. You don't have to. We want to. We're bringing everyone, the whole charter, all 198. Marcus's breath caught. "Rose, that's too much." "It's not nearly enough, but it's what we've got. Monday. Be ready." Monday morning arrived cold and clear, the kind of December day Phoenix did perfectly. Marcus rode the bus to campus with his stomach full of butterflies. Elena had hugged him extra tight that morning, told him she was proud of him, told him she loved him. The bus turned the corner toward campus, and Marcus pressed his face to the window. Every parking space was full of motorcycles, and standing beside each one was a person in black leather. All 198 of them. Just like that first Monday 3 months ago. But this time, Marcus knew their names, knew their stories, knew what this meant. He got off the bus, and Rose was there waiting. She pulled him into a tight hug. "Ready for this?" she asked. "I don't know what this is." "You will." She led him to the center of the parking lot where someone had set up a small platform and a microphone. Students and teachers were already gathering, watching from windows and doorways. Word had spread fast. Bull stepped onto the platform first. His voice carried across campus without the microphone. 3 months ago, One of our founding members was left to die in the desert. Beaten, bound, abandoned in the freezing cold by people who wanted to send us a message about fear. The crowd was completely silent. But they didn't account for Marcus Rivera, a 19-year-old student who found Rose dying and made a choice. A choice to stay when he could have walked away. A choice to give his jacket when he was freezing. A choice to hold her and keep her warm with his own body, even though he knew it might kill him. Bull's voice got rougher. That choice saved Rose's life. And it reminded all of us what we're supposed to stand for. Protection, honor, sacrifice. Marcus showed us those values in action. He became family that night in the desert. Bull looked at Marcus. "Come up here, son." Marcus's legs felt weak as he climbed onto the platform. 200 faces watched him. Students who'd ignored him, teachers who hadn't noticed, bikers who'd adopted him. "Marcus," Bull said, speaking directly to him now. "The Hells Angels Motorcycle Club doesn't give recognition lightly. We don't hand out awards or medals, but we do honor courage when we see it." He pulled something from his vest. A patch, larger than the protection patch Marcus wore. This one had the full club colors, the winged skull. Hells Angels MC Phoenix. "This is an honorary member patch," Bull explained. "You're not a full member. You haven't earned your colors through the traditional path. But you've earned our respect through the highest possible standard, through sacrifice for one of our own." He pinned the patch to Marcus's jacket. "You wear this, and you represent us. You represent what we believe in. Can you do that?" Marcus's voice shook, but held. "Yes, sir. I can." Bull stepped back, and suddenly all 198 bikers were saluting. Not the head bow from 3 months ago, a proper salute, hands to foreheads, holding the position. Rose stepped onto the platform next. She took the microphone with tears already streaming down her face. "I was dying," she said simply. "I was 51 years old." "70!" someone shouted from the crowd. Rose laughed through her tears. "Fine. I was 70 years old, and I'd accepted that I was going to die in that desert. I was making peace with it, thinking about my grandbabies and how I wouldn't see them grow up." Her voice broke. "And then this small, scared boy found me. This boy who was being bullied every day, who felt worthless, who thought he didn't matter. And he proved that he mattered more than anyone, because when it counted, when someone needed him, he didn't hesitate. He gave everything." She turned to Marcus. "You saved my life, but you did more than that. You showed my grandchildren that good people exist. You showed my club what real courage looks like. You showed everyone here that size and strength don't measure a person's worth. Character does. Heart does." Rose pulled Marcus into a hug and whispered in his ear, "I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud." When she let go, she spoke to the crowd again. "Marcus has decided to transfer to Arizona State next fall. He's going to study computer science and build a career and make a difference in this world. And we are going to help him do it." Bull stepped forward with another envelope. "Full ride scholarship from the club, for all 4 years. Books, housing, everything. You focus on school, Marcus. We've got the rest." Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't process. His eyes were full of tears and his throat was closed, and his heart felt like it might burst. "Speech!" someone called out. The crowd picked it up. "Speech! Speech!" Marcus took the microphone with shaking hands. He looked out at the sea of faces. At Rose with her proud smile. At Bull with his arms crossed and his eyes kind. At the bikers who'd protected him. At the students who'd watched him transform. At David Chen standing at the edge of the crowd with hope in his eyes. "I don't know what to say," Marcus started. His voice came through the speakers, thin and nervous. 3 months ago, I was the most scared person on this campus. I got bullied every day. My lunch got dumped on me. I got shoved into bathrooms, called names, made to feel like I was nothing. He saw some students shift uncomfortably. I walked alone on dark roads because I was too afraid to take the bus. I skipped classes to avoid my bully. I thought about quitting school. I thought about giving up on everything. His voice got stronger. And then one night, in the desert, I found Rose dying. And I had a choice. Call for help and walk away. Stay warm and safe and let someone else handle it. Or lay down in the freezing sand beside a stranger and try to keep her alive. Marcus looked at Rose. I don't know why I made the choice I did. Maybe because I knew what it felt like to be helpless, to need help and not get it. Maybe because my mom raised me to care about people. Maybe because I was tired of running away from hard things. He turned back to the crowd. But I stayed, and it almost killed me. My body temperature dropped so low my organs were shutting down. The doctors said 15 more minutes and I would have died. The campus was silent except for his voice. But I didn't die. And neither did Rose. And I learned something out there in the cold. I learned that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about being terrified and acting anyway. It's about doing the right thing when every instinct says run. It's about deciding that someone else's life matters more than your own comfort. Marcus's voice cracked. I spent months thinking I was worthless, thinking the bullies were right about me. But they weren't. I had strength the whole time. I just couldn't see it until I had to use it. He looked at David. If you're getting bullied, if someone's making you feel small, hear me. You are not small. You are not worthless. You are not what they say you are. And there are people who will protect you if you let them. You don't have to face it alone. Then Marcus looked at the students who'd watched him suffer. And if you see someone being hurt, don't look away. Don't tell yourself it's not your business. Stand up. Say something. Be the person I needed 3 months ago. He handed the microphone back to Rose, too emotional to continue. The applause started slow, then built. Students were crying. Teachers were applauding. The bikers were nodding with respect and pride. Rose took Marcus's hand and raised it high. This is Marcus Rivera. This is family. This is who we protect and honor and love. Now and always. The motorcycles started all at once, that familiar thunder that shook the ground. They pulled out in formation, circling the campus once in a final show of solidarity before disappearing down the road. But Rose stayed. So did Bull and a few others. They walked Marcus to his final exam in computer programming. You're going to do great, Rose said at the door. And when you're done with this semester, when you're at ASU next fall, when you're building your career and living your life, remember something. What? You were always this brave. You were always this strong. You just needed to see it reflected back at you. We didn't change you, Marcus. We just showed you who you already were. 6 months later, Marcus Rivera stood in front of a lecture hall at Arizona State University, guest speaking for a psychology class about bullying and intervention. He wore his honorary Hells Angels patch on his jacket. Wore it proud. He told them about Brett Hawkins in the bathroom and the cafeteria. He told them about the desert and Rose and the choice that changed everything. He told them about David Chen, who was now his roommate, who'd gained 20 pounds and confidence to match, who was thriving at Phoenix Community College with a table full of friends. He told them courage was a choice anyone could make. After the lecture, students came up to thank him, to share their own stories of being bullied or witnessing bullying, to ask how they could be braver. Marcus gave them all the same answer Rose had given him. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to act despite the fear. That's all courage ever is. That evening, Marcus met Rose and her grandchildren for dinner. Sarah was thriving at ASU's veterinary program. The twins were still playing hockey and driving their Nana crazy. "How's your mom doing?" Rose asked over pasta and breadsticks. "She's great. Working just one job now, saving money." Smiling more. "She asked me to thank you again for the scholarship. Tell her she raised the best kind of human. That's thanks enough." After dinner, as they walked to the parking lot, Rose put her arm around Marcus's shoulders. "You know what the best part of all this is?" she asked. "What?" "You're not the scared kid from the desert anymore. You're the protector now. You're the one other people look to for courage. That's the legacy, Marcus. Not that we saved you, that you save others." Marcus thought about David, about the freshmen he mentored, about the anti-bullying program he'd helped start at Phoenix Community College, about the speeches he gave and the lives he touched. "I was invisible until the night I chose to be seen," Marcus said quietly, echoing thoughts from months ago. "And that choice changed everything." Rose hugged him tight. "It changed you. It changed me. It changed everyone who heard your story. That's what one choice can do." That's what courage looks like. Marcus drove home that night through Phoenix streets, passing the turnoff that led to the old desert road. He didn't take it anymore, didn't need to hide on back roads, but sometimes he thought about that night, the cold, the fear, the moment he decided to stay. That decision had saved 2 lives in the desert, but it had saved so many more in the months that followed. Every person Marcus helped, every David Chen who found protection, every bully who learned consequences, every student who witnessed courage and chose to be braver themselves. Ripples spreading outward from one choice on one frozen night. Marcus pulled into his apartment complex and sat in the car for a moment. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos. Him and Rose at the barbecue, him and the club members, him and David and his new friends, him and his mom, both of them smiling, both of them free. He thought about Brett Hawkins, who'd transferred schools and faded into memory. He didn't hate Brett anymore, didn't even think about him much. Brett was just someone who hadn't learned yet that strength isn't found in making others feel small. Real strength was lying in the desert sand beside a dying stranger and choosing to stay. Real strength was standing up for David when every instinct said walk away. Real strength was being terrified every single day and living your life anyway. Marcus had been strong all along. He just hadn't known it until he had to be. He got out of the car and walked toward his apartment. His mom had left the porch light on for him like she always did, a small gesture that meant everything. That meant home. That meant love. That meant someone was waiting for him. Inside, he found a note on the kitchen table in Elena's handwriting. "Proud of you every single day. Love, Mom." Marcus smiled and tucked the note in his pocket next to the patch Bull had given him. Reminders of who he was. Not who Brett said he was. Not who fear said he was. But who he'd proven himself to be when it mattered most. A protector. A friend. A man of courage. Someone who'd been called a mouse, but roared like a lion when someone needed saving. Someone who'd been freezing to death in the Arizona desert and discovered that warmth comes not from avoiding the cold, but from choosing to share whatever heat you have left. Someone who'd learned the most important lesson of all, that one act of courage in the darkness can light the way for everyone who comes after. And Marcus Rivera carried that light forward, one choice at a time, one person at a time, one moment of bravery at a time, knowing that courage isn't something you find when you're no longer afraid. It's something you choose, precisely because you are.